What is good, everyone? It's Zigzag here. Welcome back to Geoguessr Explained. Today we are back on the play along series. You can find the links for today and tomorrow's videos inside the description so you can play along. And today we have a no moving, panning, or zooming special. So let's try and run through the clues we have without moving around. So this is going to be a bit different. We're going to have much less to work with, but let's see what diverse world will serve us up today. Okay, so first one here is actually quite a meta-heavy location. So first things first, we have a double white line in the center of the road here. Given that we have all whites, we're definitely considering, like Europe, Oceania, Chile, those kind of countries like that. And with this dry landscape, probably if it was in Europe, it had to have to be Mediterranean. Now, there are certain countries in Europe that use double white lines much more than single white lines and vice versa. And it turns out that, in most of the Mediterranean countries, they use single white line more than double white line. So Greece is the outlier that uses double white lines a lot, but like Turkey, Italy, and Spain would tend to use a single white line in the center of the road for no overtaking and stuff like that. Or it's just the most common anyway. So that pretty much excludes those countries. Then we could say, let's take a look at the sun here. So sun appears to be somewhat more to the north. You can see that the shadow is kind of being cast to the south here, meaning the sun is north, which would mean more likely to be southern hemisphere. Also, we have this black on yellow chevron, and that would be like the kind of American style, which you also find in Australia and New Zealand as well. So Chile is the next question. How can we tell this is probably not going to be Chile? Well, I would say like these red reflectors inside the guardrail on top of it are just something you just see in Australia. So at this point, we're pretty sure it's going to be somewhere in Australia. And we kind of have like rolling hills here. Not too much in terms of concrete clues, bar one thing. We have this broken outside line with the red reflector inside. Now these broken lines, they don't always have the reflector, but when you have these broken lines, you should be somewhere in either Canberra, the Australian Capital Territory, or in the state of South Australia. I think this is going to be South Australia just based on the landscape, but Canberra is the territory where you'd be most likely to see the red between the lines, between the gaps. So that's what we're working with here. I would say it's just a more South Australian landscape, and so we're going to guess there. But yeah, definitely could have been Canberra as well. But it's a nice way to to get a good score based on that. And so let's try near Adelaide here. Ends up being near Mount Barker. Interesting. That definitely makes sense. But okay, we start off with a pretty decent score there. Okay, next one here is very, very information sparse. We basically have two yellow lines in the center of the road. We have white outer lines, and we have some reddish dirt and some kind of temperate-looking trees. So I think this is going to be somewhere in the United States. Mostly the reason is the trees combined with the yellow lines. So double yellows, they can be found all over the Americas. I think this kind of, it's quite flat, and it doesn't feel tropical at all. So to see like these kind of I don't know if they're oaks or something similar, to see those in Brazil would be exceptionally rare. I feel like Brazil just has a lot of different types of trees. Maybe you could see similar trees in Argentina, but Argentina would be much less likely to have this kind of red soil, which is kind of behind my webcam. I'll show you that quickly here. This kind of red soil like that. So I also think that that's kind of weighing into my decision here. Also, I feel like these center lines are kind of further apart from one another, which is something you do often see in the south of the United States as well, which is not really common elsewhere. Now, we don't see any southern pines, which would make me really happy to go southern here. So I'm thinking I'll just go like north in the southern states here, maybe like Arkansas or something. Maybe North Alabama. If I was going without the road lines here, I'd probably be more tempted to go like kind of in this region here. Definitely kind of feels like it's slightly hilly, like Appalachian kind of round, so I think that's what I'll go for here. I can't remember if it is Alabama, but definitely Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas use the wide lines quite often, and also then wide lines are very common in Washington and Oregon. But to be honest, they probably often look a little bit wider than this even, so I don't really know. But guys, yeah, that's about it here. Yeah, not really too much to say. I think it's just a very generic round. Also, this kind of like metal fence style is much more like of a developed country one, whereas they'd probably use like sticks or logs in other countries. So let's just go for that. And it was in the south. Arkansas really considered it. Didn't really feel like clicking in the middle though, because I felt like this is kind of the center of where it could have been. So that makes sense. We're downtown in the great state where Rainbow comes from there. Shouts to Rainbow. We took the tournament win today, which is just crazy, but I'll have a video out on my main channel about that if you didn't catch it. Next one here, we have a yellow number plate on this truck. Now, what's interesting is we have Spanish language here. And normally on trucks like this size in Colombia, you would see a white number plate. But I think this is Colombia anyway, because we seem to have a cross on the back of the sign, which, as I've said before in the series, is something you typically see in Colombia and not really anywhere else. Or not really anywhere else in South America. Especially when it's a white back of the sign. So we also have a concrete road here, which is fairly typical for Colombia. We have like some kind of like a similar looking tree to a eucalyptus. Might not be a eucalypt, but maybe like a arbutus, or probably not that, but some similar related tree, which is not too hard to see in Colombia. We have like a round concrete pole here as well, definitely fits. I think I'll go somewhere Center Valley here. Again, there's not too much to say, but let's find out where this actually is. Actually, it was all the way south there, interestingly. So Fabi takes the lead here. Next one here. Okay, this is interesting. So, again, a relatively, it doesn't really have too much information here, but that's actually fine because we don't need too much here. We've got these long outer dashes. You could say that, like, long outer dashes, they're found in most commonly in Norway, and then in other countries around Europe, for example, like France has quite often long outer dashes. Like these, like Bulgaria and Romania can have quite long outer dashes as well. But these ones, yeah, they're about double the length of what you'd see in Sweden. And the best way, don't look at the ones in the distance, just check out the one that's closest to you. And if it feels like it's, if you like 2 meters long, like the height of a person almost, then like 1.5 meters long or something, then it really should feel like Norway rather than Sweden, where it would be about half the length. So yeah, that's about it. Definitely kind of giving me more north vibes here, because we don't have any proper trees. Everything's kind of short of bushes. Same time though, I could not really say that I'm too confident, because sometimes when you have a high altitude on the coast, even in Norway, it can look quite similar. But I'm going to go up here somewhere. Let's find out if that's right. Actually, it was ending up being pretty close there, so we can be happy with that. Okay, and our final location here is going to be somewhere in Tunisia. I said it off the bat here, but basically we got the antenna. The antenna would be found at the back of the car, so that would mean if we're driving like this, then that would be the back of the car, which means right-hand drive. We also have like a bunch of olive trees, which are probably most common in Tunisia and Spain, I would say. So that's definitely helpful here. A bunch of palms as well, which you see probably more commonly in Tunisia than in Spain. This like length of dash, kind of longer dashes in the center, is very Tunisian, and most of all, perhaps, is this pole here, this metal pole, which is kind of looking very flimsy, I would say. That's very, very commonly seen in Tunisia. So I kind of feel like this one doesn't really give me like a very green vibe at all. Like there's not really, it doesn't really feel like grass could grow much here. So I feel like this is kind of here or south. I kind of want to go, I'm not going to look at road angle, but I kind of feel like this is kind of like south like that maybe. So let's check it out. And it was actually on Gerba. I did consider it, but I'm not really good at recognizing Gerba, so I kind of wanted to go mainland instead. 21,000 there is a good result, and Fabi comes through with a nice game. But let's go through here and check out some people who did rather more poorly. Give the video a like if you're enjoying, and let me know if you want to see more NMPZ games on here, because I'll be more than happy to do more NMPZ games, but it's all depending on what you guys are looking for. So guys, I don't really think there's too much extra to say here. Let's check out the 14Kers and see where they missed out. So the USA guesses were good there. Likewise, the Colombia guesses were pretty standard, so that was good stuff. They both miss out on the Tunisia there. So I feel like in Turkey that would just be a single like white line in the center of the road, and in Israel you'd probably have yellow outer lines on a road like that. Regardless, you probably wouldn't see the short antenna very often there, and in Turkey you'd never have an antenna. So that's the easiest way to get that if we're talking about car meta. As for the Norway, they had fine guesses. I mean, it could have been down there, but just kind of the smaller bushes and the lack of trees would indicate that more north landscape. And then our last one was in Australia. We had one in Canberra, so actually like a very reasonable guess. And then one in Victoria. Also, the landscape wasn't too bad for that kind of guess, but yeah, I'm just remembering those like outer gaps. So that's pretty much all for that one. Let's go into Rural World here, which should be a bit of fun. And we're starting off with a difficult one here. So, do we see bollards in the distance? I would kind of suggest we may see bollards here, which is interesting. So, I would say this kind of feels like Slovakia to me. It definitely feels like Europe over North America because of like the thinness of the road and also the cracks in the road. Well, North American roads aren't the best quality, but like you're more likely to see cracks in the road like this in Eastern Europe than you are in North America, I would say. Then also the road is kind of like not quite wide enough for two abreast, so that would make sense. And then if we do have bollards there, that's obviously more common in Europe. So yeah, I would say maybe Slovakia here, Czechia possible, maybe like Croatia or I don't know. A bunch of other things are possible here. I kind of like Slovakia though, and it ends up being Slovakia. Pretty good start there indeed. Just vibes, just vibes. And also that winter generation forest, relatively common in Slovakia too. Okay, next one here is a little more challenging, I would say. So this one's kind of between Southeast Asia and like South America. I could see countries I could see in South America would be like Mexico, or Latin America rather. Mexico is probably the most likely here. Having said that, I mean, like maybe Brazil as well. Having said that, I don't think they're as likely as, for example, Thailand or Cambodia here. When I'm looking at this tree over to the side, just behind the map here, it's like got a lot of white splodges on it. Kind of reminds me of like a rubber tree or something like that. Those ones are much more common in Southeast Asia. And then also this kind of wooden fence. I mean, this could be easily found in South America too, I feel, but yeah, definitely kind of fits. And the way we just kind of have like a more bare field over to the left here, which you again can't really see, but just like through the tree gap there, we have kind of like a field. I feel like that is feeling relatively good for like northern Cambodia or southern Thailand or something, and it is just kind of middle Cambodia there. So definitely a tough one to get if you're less experienced, but yeah, I think there's a lot of like red dirt roads in Cambodia and Thailand, so that can really like lean you over the edge once you kind of get that vibe with like kind of a rubber tree or something like that. And Thailand is the country that grows the most rubber trees, so it also makes sense. Next one here is Generation 2. We got the massive circular blur at the bottom. It's got like a bunch of red dirt here, kind of like older style poles. We have like some big mountains in the background there, but not nothing huge, but fairly big. As for where, this is actually kind of difficult. I would lean probably somewhere like around here, but it could be like all the way further north as well. I do consider that quite possible, even just somewhere around Haoteng here would seem relatively possible to me. But being as how we have to guess soon, I will go somewhere around here. Any last tips here? Well, this style of pole should only be South Africa, especially combined with this with the Generation 2 camera. We have one of those thin fences that I said is more common in developed countries, but yeah, South Africa kind of shares that fence with like US and Australia and stuff like that. And then I would say like kind of these bushes, they may feel a bit further north, to be honest. This is I don't really make this mistake too often, but I'm thinking that maybe I should actually switch here. It's just that these kind of older style poles with all the little white things on them are more common southern. I think I may be switching here. I think I may have to switch just based on the prevalence of these bushes, which do remind you kind of the north west of the country. So let's see it here. It was the north west of the country, or not really west of the country, but north, kind of western border. And so yeah, not a bad switch up there. Fabi coming into his own once again here. Very nice stuff indeed, and getting the state Limpopo there. So yeah, those kind of bushes I guess will be more northern, but I can definitely forgive someone for going southern there because I almost did myself. Next one here is interesting. We've kind of like a square cobbler here. I immediately look at that and think of like certain countries that use like roof racks or something. However, this landscape with the kind of double concrete road really reminds me of like North Luzon or something like that, where like we don't really see any like palm trees, yet it still feels relatively Filipino or something like that with these crops. So yeah, I think I do kind of like that. Double concrete roads like this, two-lane concrete roads are very common in Philippines and quite uncommon elsewhere. I mean, we did see one in Colombia today, but you can see them in Colombia and Ecuador and in Thailand and stuff, but they're just less common. So this is where you should mostly consider. Now, could this still be Indonesia? Yes. It feels a bit too temperate for me. It does feel like it's like all the way in the north of Luzon with the lack of palms and everything. But I guess we'll find out soon enough. So let's check out where this actually is. And it was exactly right there. So very nice indeed. We maintain our top in the top spot in the top three there. And yeah, pretty much had to be so far north because of the lack of palms for me there. Next one here is relatively simple, actually. So we have a circular concrete pole here with this spike at the top. Now, this spike at the top you can expect to see mostly in Korea and sometimes around Tokyo or different parts of Japan, but yeah, mostly Tokyo. But yeah, this one should be Korea because we're not in low camera here. With these kind of like flat looking fields, I would definitely associate that with like kind of this region over here near Mokpo. So I'm gonna go there. It could even be north or just near Busan as well. But yeah, this kind of flatness with agricultural landscape definitely reminds me of down here. Yeah, that's about all we need to say, I think. I'm just going to go for that. We'll see if I'm correct or not. And it was right there indeed. So I think we may have snuck the victory here. We had a nice little run of rounds there. It was not necessarily an easy seed. To get the country 5 times on Rural World, and indeed the region 5 times on Rural World, is quite a nice result for us, I would say. So there we go. Let's head down to the kind of people down near the bottom here and check out how they did. So I think we'll only need to like load 2 more here because 11k is already enough. So Lucy and Head Bob are our subjects for today. South Africa guesses were 1, about the same as mine, and 2, decent. I would say, yeah, just the bush is less common down there. It's a different kind of bush. It's worth just having a little look around South Africa because it is pretty rich and guessable. Other than that, we had a Taiwan guess, pretty reasonable there. Obviously, Taiwan would be a bit more mountainous. To get around that flat in Taiwan would require you to be, like around where you clicked, but then you wouldn't have hills because it's kind of like it's kind of night and day in Taiwan when it comes to that. Then we had a Colombia, reasonable guess, but yeah, that double concrete road just makes it more likely to be in Philippines. We had a good Czechia guess there, definitely solid from Lucy. The Vermont guess is actually pretty reasonable as well, just remembering that kind of road quality, thinner road, checking for bollards as well. We had one good Korea, and the other person went in Sabah, which is reasonable. And yeah, that is about it. So guys, thank you very much for watching the video all the way to the end. I appreciate you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in a video very soon. Till next time, and goodbye.